This man has a strange disease. Every night at 12 o'clock, he would wake up in the body of a stranger. Sometimes it's a handsome man, sometimes it's a beautiful woman, and sometimes even Spider-Man's best friend. He named himself Jack. For as long as he can remember, he's been living in different people's bodies. At the moment of possession, he will read all of the host's memories and help him through the day, and then secretly leave a photo as a remembrance. On this day, Jack possessed an asshole's body, although he was not very good looking, but he had a beautiful girlfriend. When he met Annie, Jack had a strange feeling for this girl. He gently pulled her hair up around her ears.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Like what?
Maybe it would be fun if we just went somewhere.
Like after school?
Or even now.
Is that something we do?
Well, couldn't it be?
Annie didn't expect her boyfriend to go along with it uncharacteristically. They sang the girl's favorite song in the car together. They went to the aquarium. Her boyfriend had never cared for her like that before. At that moment, Annie felt so happy. The distance between the two of them had gradually grown closer. Annie couldn't help but tell him about her problems with her father. He comforted her gently and told her, "You have a beautiful smile." Annie was so happy to be sent home by her boyfriend. She thought it was the happiest day of her life.
That's the nice note. Also, your mouth tastes so much better when you don't smoke.
I'll try to remember that.
But the next day, Annie found her boyfriend smoking cigarettes as usual. Annie was very disappointed. Then a new transfer student wanted to make friends with Annie. Annie agreed to be her friend, but she didn't expect it. This transfer student was Jack. Her boyfriend came up to her in lab class. He didn't remember anything about yesterday's date, and he complained that because he and Annie skipped class yesterday, he didn't get a lot of homework done. Annie got a little upset. Jack scolded the boy, and then he gently pulled Annie's hair up. Jack's gesture made Annie a little embarrassed, so she left the lab. The next day, Annie went to the bar with her boyfriend. She still tried to remind him of their date, so she played the song they sang in the car, but he didn't respond. Instead, a boy danced to the music. It was obvious that he was Jack. At his invitation, Annie danced with him. Then they got to talking. He pulled the girl's hair up again.
I just know that you can be attracted to way more people.
How do you know?
And then Jack's cell phone alarm went off. He had to get home, but Annie grabbed his cell phone and tried to write down the number. The time was almost up. Jack grabbed his cell phone back and fled in a panic, so he decided to explain to her what had happened to him.
Because I am someone who wakes up in a different body every day.
Always someone my age. Never too far from the last, never the same person twice. I have absolutely no control over any of it.
But Annie didn't believe it. She thought it was ridiculous, so she got up and left. Jack had no choice but to tell her the details of the day they spent together. But Annie thought it was a prank that he and his boyfriend had pulled together.
He doesn't talk to you like this. He doesn't spend days with you like the one that we had together. He doesn't see you. It's not possible. It is.
This statement immediately touched the sensitive heart of Nicole, but she still had a hard time accepting the truth. After school, she met her boyfriend, but she found out that he didn't remember what happened that day. In order to find out the truth, Annie met with Jack again, and this time, Jack possessed the body of Spider-Man's best friend. Annie asked him a very tough question.
Okay, the day you were Justin, what was I wearing?
Peasant blouse, jean shorts. What?
You know what a peasant blouse is?
Well, half the time I wake up as a girl. Although, I will say I think that James could totally pull it off. I think got the physique for it and all that good stuff.
Okay.
No matter how much Annie questioned him, Jack was always able to answer it without missing a beat. And then he showed Annie his social media accounts. It showed everyone he'd ever possessed. Before she left, Annie still said she didn't believe him, but in her heart, she already knew the answer. Every day after that, Annie always saw a pair of hot eyes staring at her in the crowd, and it bothered Annie. She asked Jack why he kept pestering her. Jack said, "I really like the feeling of being with you, so I can't help but come to you." But Annie said, it's just an illusion she gives her boyfriend when she's showing him love. But Jack had extracted Annie's boyfriend's memories and thoughts. He knew he never really liked Annie. At first, Annie didn't believe him, but in subsequent tests, she found out that her boyfriend had been lying to her. He didn't remember her birthday. He didn't know what she liked. He couldn't even tell her what he liked about her. Annie was disappointed in him. In the days that followed, he started accepting invitations from Jack on a regular basis. They were like a couple in love. They always had a lot to talk about. But one day Jack woke up. He found himself in Annie's body.
Be cool, be cool, be cool, be cool. Sorry. I didn't mean to look.
He was so happy to be Annie, and he declined Annie's boyfriend's invitation. Then he went to the studio where Annie's father worked, and resolved the conflict between Annie and her father. By talking to her father, Jack found out why Annie's father quit his job, was to follow a dream he had when he was young. Finally, Jack wrote down everything that happened today. When Annie read the letter the next day, she was touched. She finally realized what was in her heart, so she had the courage to break up with her boyfriend. And that was that. A beautiful girl and a disembodied soul started dating, but because Jack had no body, Annie was often seen by others as dating different people, and her schoolmates began to gossip about her. Luckily, Jack was always there for her. Annie was never hurt. Then one day, Jack possessed Mark, one of Annie's classmates. Mark was the most satisfying body he'd had in a long time. After extracting Mark's memories, he realized that this somewhat introverted boy was not only talented, he also had an eye for beauty. He then told Annie about Mark. Annie enjoyed their time together. By the end of the night, Annie couldn't bear to see this version of Jack go, so she asked Jack to stay another day. Jack seemed to be getting the hang of it. Over the next few days, he took Annie to do all sorts of romantic things that couples do. But when he came home that day, he realized he'd forgotten about the birthday dinner the family had planned for Mark. His mother's accusations made Jack realize his problem. That night, he told Annie about his concerns. Because of his presence, Annie was unable to choose a stable partner, and Mark was forced to separate from his family. He had no right to take away someone else's life. After getting to know Mark, he realized that Mark was the right man for Annie, but Jack's decision to withdraw was strongly opposed by Annie.
Think about what happens if you and I stay together. What happens when I start waking up with someone in a marriage? Someone with kids? What if we want a kid? Whose kid is that gonna be? Or is she gonna have a life like mine and always wonder? Most people know that their first love won't be their only love. But for me, you're both.
Annie finally understood what Jack was doing, and the two of them cherished their last moments of happiness. And as the sun rose, Jack began to live on the streets again. Annie spent a long time at home alone grieving, but life went on. That day when she saw Mark, she went up to him and said hello. But what she didn't expect was for Mark to say,
Has anyone ever told you you have a nice smile? Just being honest.